When the night grew still and only the faint glow of the lanterns remained, Ibn Arabi gathered his students in the courtyard and said, "There is a prayer, a secret one, that brings wealth in ways the world cannot measure. Not coins. Not possessions. Wealth that begins in the unseen and pours into the seen." The students leaned in, hearts pounding, for they had heard rumors of this teaching but never the truth of it. Ibn Arabi looked at them and continued, "Understand this first. Wealth is a creation of Allah, and He gives it to whom He wills. But there is a prayer that opens the flow, removes the barriers, and invites abundance to find you." He raised his hand slowly. It is not a prayer of asking. It is a prayer of alignment. The wind stirred around them as if listening. When a servant recites this prayer, he said, Allah removes the invisible chains that hold them in poverty, chains of fear, laziness, doubt, arrogance, and spiritual blindness. One of the students whispered, "Master, what is the prayer?" Ibn Arabi smiled. "You must understand its meaning before you learn its words." He stepped closer. True wealth begins the moment you stop chasing dunya and start trusting Allah. When you trust Him, He sends what you need. When you detach from people, He attaches blessings to you. When you clean your heart, He fills your hands. He paused, letting the truth sink in. The prayer begins like this: Yagani, Yamugni, enrich my heart with you, and enrich my life with what you decree. The students trembled. They could feel something powerful in those words, something ancient, something alive. Ibn Arabi continued, "When this prayer is recited with sincerity, Allah does 4 things for His servant." He lifted one finger. First, He opens a path you never saw. A second, He closes a door that was draining your blessings. A third, He sends opportunities that come searching for you. A fourth, He removes the people who were blocking your rizq without you knowing. The students felt chills run down their spines. "But that is not all," Ibn Arabi said. "When Allah loves a servant, He sends them wealth that does not corrupt their soul. Wealth with barakah. Wealth without pride. Wealth without fear. Wealth that lifts others. Wealth that survives death." A student asked, "Master, how often should this prayer be recited?" Ibn Arabi answered, "Every night before sleep, until you feel your heart loosen." His voice lowered to a whisper. The heart must unclench before the hand can receive. The courtyard fell silent, the air heavy with a presence none of them could explain. Ibn Arabi then said the final words of the teaching, the ones that lingered in the soul long after the sound faded: "Recite this prayer not for gold, not for status, not for worldly gain. Recite it so Allah may trust you with abundance. For when Allah trusts a heart, He placed His palm over his chest. He fills it with wealth that no thief, no enemy, no fear, and no time can take away." And with that, he walked into the dark, leaving his students with a prayer that could change their lives, if their hearts were ready to carry the weight of abundance. The students sat frozen, each of them feeling the weight of Ibn Arabi's words settle into their chests like something planted, a seed that had just begun to glow. But he had not gone far. His footsteps paused in the darkness, and his voice returned, deeper, calmer, carrying a force that made every breath in the courtyard tremble. "There is something you must understand," he said, still unseen. "When Allah sends wealth, He tests the heart before He fills the hand." The students exchanged tense glances. A test? Before abundance? Ibn Arabi stepped back into the moonlight, his face half in shadow, half illuminated by the lanterns. Wealth is not just money, he said. It is responsibility. It is trust. It is a witness against you or a witness for you. He looked at them one by one. Some people are poor in gold but rich in spirit. Some are rich in gold but bankrupt in soul. No one dared breathe. Ibn Arabi continued, when you recite the prayer of abundance, 3 things will happen, and you must not fear them. He raised a finger. First, Allah will remove something from your life. Not to punish you, but to make space for what is coming. A student gasped softly. He felt it, deeply, as though something in his own life had been removed recently without explanation. Ibn Arabi raised a second finger. Second, Allah will distance you from certain people. Because some hearts cannot witness your elevation. The students felt another wave of truth strike them. They had all lost people in their lives suddenly, without reason, and now it made sense. Then he raised a third finger. Third, Allah will test your sincerity. How? One student asked, voice trembling. Ibn Arabi's reply was simple, but it struck like thunder. He will give you a moment when you have nothing. And in that moment, he will see if you still trust him. A breathless silence fell. If you do, he whispered. The gates of rizq open in ways the mind cannot comprehend. He stepped forward. Wealth that arrives without effort. People who bring blessings into your life. Doors that open without you knocking. Solutions to problems that should have destroyed you. The students sat trembling. This wasn't just a prayer. It was a transformation. Ibn Arabi then said something that felt like the heart of the entire teaching. Allah does not enrich you when you are ready to receive wealth. He enriches you when you are ready to handle it. A lantern flickered violently, as if reacting to the truth. He continued. Some people ask for wealth while their hearts are full of greed. Some ask for abundance while harming others. Some ask for blessings while ignoring their obligations. He nodded solemnly. These hearts would drown in the wealth they desire. Then he looked up at the sky. But the one who recites this prayer with sincerity is not asking for wealth. He is asking to be made worthy of wealth. A divine difference. The students felt something shift inside them, a humility, a clarity, a readiness, and Ibn Arabi saw it in their eyes. He said softly, almost like a father teaching his children. Abundance is not when your hands are full. Abundance is when your heart is full. He began to walk away once more, but before disappearing, he turned and left them with one final truth. Recite the prayer. Trust the process. Expect the test. Accept the purification. And when Allah finally opens the door, He touched his heart gently. Your wealth will not just change your life. It will change the lives of everyone around you. Then he vanished into the night, leaving the students trembling, awakened. Each of them silently reciting the prayer that unlocks abundance written for them long before they were born. The night deepened, wrapping the courtyard in a cloak of silence, but the silence felt alive, heavy, electric, vibrating with meanings the students were only beginning to grasp. None dared move. None dared speak. They felt as if the air itself carried the remnants of Ibn Arabi's presence, as if the unseen world had not yet withdrawn its attention. Then, from somewhere behind the old cypress tree, his voice returned, softer now, no longer a teacher speaking to students, but a knower speaking to souls. "There is a secret behind wealth," he said, "that very few understand, even fewer live." The students turned, desperate to see him, but he remained hidden in the shadows. "Wealth is not given," he said. "It is attracted." A shiver passed through the group. Not by effort alone. Not by intelligence alone. Not by ambition alone. He paused. "Wealth is attracted by who you become." The words hit them like a revelation. He continued. "When a servant purifies his heart, Allah purifies his sustenance. When a servant becomes generous, Allah becomes generous with him. When a servant trusts Allah completely, the dunya begins to chase him." A student, unable to contain himself, asked into the darkness, "Master, how does one become the kind of person wealth is drawn to?" The answer came like a wave. By removing what repels it. The students leaned forward instinctively. Ibn Arabi began to list them, each word like a hammer striking the soul. "Remove envy, for the envious heart is never given increase. Remove arrogance, for the arrogant heart is sealed. Remove fear, for wealth does not enter a trembling soul. Remove greed, for greed is the enemy of barakah. Remove laziness, for Allah does not enrich those who bury their gifts." He stepped out of the shadows at last, the moonlight illuminating half his face like he stood between two worlds. "And then," he said softly, "replace each of these diseases with its opposite." He placed a hand over his heart. Gratitude attracts abundance. Contentment expands abundance. Generosity multiplies abundance. Tawakkul unlocks abundance. His voice dropped to a whisper. And sincerity protects abundance. The students felt something inside them shift, as though a veil had been lifted and a path revealed. Ibn Arabi said, "The prayer of abundance works. Because you begin to change." He looked toward the horizon, where the first hint of dawn was beginning to push against the darkness. "When a servant aligns with the qualities Allah loves," he said, "Allah aligns the world in His favor." The students felt goosebumps rise on their skin. Blessings appear where there were none. Opportunities appear without warning. People appear who carry keys to your destiny. And barriers fall with no effort of your own. He turned to the students fully now. "This is miraculous wealth," he said. "Not earned, but given." He lifted his hand as if dismissing the last doubts from their minds. And when Allah gives, He gives completely. The final lantern flickered, then extinguished. Dawn whispered at the edge of the sky. And Ibn Arabi walked away for the last time that night, leaving behind students whose souls felt fuller than their bodies had ever hoped to be, each of them aware that the true journey toward abundance had just begun. From the moment Ibn Arabi's silhouette disappeared beyond the archway, the students felt as though the entire courtyard had shifted, as if they were no longer sitting in the same world they had been born into. Something unseen had awakened, like a door inside each of them had opened only a small crack, but enough to let in a light they had never felt before. None of them were ready to leave. None of them even wanted to leave. It was as if the night itself commanded them to stay. Then, impossibly, his voice returned a final time, not loud, not dramatic, but calm, and closer than they expected. As if he had never left them at all. "You want more?" he asked gently, his tone half smile, half serious. "Then listen." The students' hearts jumped. They sat up straighter. Ibn Arabi stepped back into the courtyard, bathed in the soft silver of the rising dawn. This time, he held nothing in his hands, no lantern, no staff, only a certainty that seemed to radiate from him like a second light. He looked at them and said, "There is a level of abundance even greater than wealth itself." The students leaned in, breathless. "It is the abundance of ease." A quiet gasp rippled through them. He continued, "When Allah is pleased with a servant, He gives him rizq. But when Allah is deeply pleased with a servant, He removes effort from rizq." The word struck with the force of revelation. "This is the highest form of wealth," he said. "When doors open without knocking. When solutions appear before the problem finishes speaking. When sustenance seeks you instead of you seeking it." He walked slowly among them, speaking softly, almost intimately. "And do you know what opens this level?" They shook their heads, eyes wide. He raised one finger. "A clean heart." He raised a second. "A consistent tongue." He raised a third. "A silent ego." And then, softer than all the rest, "And a prayer recited not for dunya, but for nearness to Allah." The students felt their throats tighten. He looked directly at them. "Dunya follows the one whom Allah brings close, and it flees the one who chases it." A gentle wind swept across the courtyard, as if confirming his words. Then Ibn Arabi revealed what they had not expected, a final secret. If you recite the prayer of abundance, without desire, without greed, without anxiety, but purely as a way of saying, "Ya Allah, I trust you," then Allah will enrich you in ways that cannot be counted, measured, or contained. The students felt tears come to their eyes. Not from emotion, but from clarity. From the sudden understanding of a truth they had spent their lives seeking in the wrong places. Ibn Arabi then stopped walking. He stood at the center of the courtyard, where the first ray of dawn touched the stone. His voice dropped into a tone that felt eternal. "Abundance begins with the prayer. But its completion," he tapped his chest lightly, "is in the heart." The sky brightened. The day began. And with a final, gentle smile, one that held the wisdom of oceans, he said, "Walk into today with trust. Walk into today with a clean heart. And watch how Allah enriches you before the sun sets." Then he turned, walked toward the rising light, and left them with more than a teaching. He left them with a destiny. The first rays of sunlight crept across the courtyard stones, warming the cold places the night had touched. The students sat in silence, not empty silence, but the kind that fills a person until they feel their heart stretching to hold something larger than themselves. They watched Ibn Arabi walk toward the brightening horizon, his figure growing smaller yet somehow heavier with meaning. And in that moment, every student felt the same realization settle into them like a final piece of a puzzle snapping into place. He had not taught them how to gain wealth. He had taught them how to become the kind of souls Allah enriches. One student whispered, barely audible, "Master, what if we fail?" Ibn Arabi paused at the very edge of the courtyard. The sunlight caught the side of his face, outlining him with a golden halo. Without turning fully back, he spoke. "Failure is only when you stop turning toward Allah. As long as you face Him, you are rising." The words washed over them like a warm tide. Then he turned completely, looking at each of them with eyes that held both mercy and fire. Wealth will come and go. Blessings will rise and fall. But the heart that trusts Allah, that heart is never deprived. He lifted one hand gently. "If you fall, stand again. If you doubt, pray again. If you fear, trust again. If you lose, ask again." His robe swayed softly in the morning breeze. But never stop reciting that prayer. He touched his chest. Because the prayer is not what brings wealth. It is what keeps your heart connected to the one who brings it. A deep peace settled over the students. Not excitement. Not desire. A calm certainty. A knowing that Allah was closer than they had understood the night before. Ibn Arabi then stepped backward into the sunlight, his final words drifting across the courtyard like the last note of a sacred melody. "Let the prayer purify you. Let the tests refine you. Let the blessings find you. And when Allah enriches you, use it to enrich the world." The sun rose fully. The shadows fled. And the students remained seated on the warm stone floor, each one holding the same silent vow inside their chest. They would recite the prayer not for dunya, but to become worthy of whatever Allah had written for them. And with that vow, their hearts felt lighter. As if the gates of unseen abundance had already begun to open.